We're here today with Lianna Kinnard, and thank you for being here with us today. And for all those people out there that don't already know you, give us a little bit of a sense of your background and who you are. Give us a little introduction.
So my name is Lianna Kinnard, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for the Buckner Company. We're a full-fledged insurance firm based here in Utah, but we write insurance all over the world, and we have 7 offices. So my primary responsibility is to handle all the brand communications and the strategy for those 7 offices.
Perfect. And we're talking about driving demand, and that it's the key to getting people into our sales funnel. And we all know that 2020 was a really rough year for so many people. So how did you drive demand while navigating through the difficulties of the pandemic?
So the pandemic, it's still hard. It's still hard, and I think that we all have shifted in more ways than one. The biggest thing that I think I've learned during the pandemic was the use of empathy in our marketing strategy. I think we've seen people struggle. We've seen companies that shut down. We saw companies that thrived. We've seen companies that have really had to adjust and adapt to the changing landscape due to the pandemic. Empathy for me has been something near and dear to my heart, but I think in the business world it's something that's kind of forgotten and not talked about very much.
How do we become more empathetic, and how does that translate into successful marketing initiatives? And maybe give us some examples from your history.
Okay, so empathy at its core is really being able to relate and understand what someone else is going through. And I think we kind of know what that's like, but in the business sense, it's a little bit more difficult. Empathy really is a very difficult but valuable skill set to have. And I think if we can implement it in marketing and sales, I think we become more successful, because at the end of the day, empathy builds trust. One really good example I can think of with our firm that I think balanced empathy within a marketing or a sales initiative was the trucking business. We have a trucking department, and we had one client that kind of went out of business. Whatever they were transporting, whether it was supplies, whether it was the companies that they were transporting for, they just kind of went out of business. They didn't have anything to do, and they let their workers go, and now they had a fleet that was just sitting there. Now, on the other hand, we had a trucking company that was transporting medical supplies, and they didn't have enough of a fleet to handle the demand that was coming in. And so it was really cool as we were able to match these companies that kind of were going out of business with companies that were really understaffed and didn't have enough in their corner to meet the supply, that we kind of matched them together. Now, you would say, how is that empathetic? In a normal world outside of the pandemic, I don't know that competitors would be helping each other or competitors would be leaning on each other. But there was a need on both ends. And to be able to come together and, company A that was really struggling, company B was able to help them meet that supply. And on the reverse, company B was able to keep their employment, to keep their workers, to provide for their family. And again, empathy at the end of the day is being able to relate. And I think both incidences with these both of the companies did that for each other.
What are some things we can do to practice including more empathy in our marketing initiatives?
So I think the biggest thing, which is the hardest, is listening. I think I have all these ideas running around, and I think our sales team at times, like, they have a set way of doing things and they know what's best. At the core of empathy, it's listening and acknowledging and trying to understand. So I think the first thing is listening. I think the second thing is just being present. I know, especially with technology, we are always on to the next thing, trying to get, not checking things off like a checkbox, but I think we get so inundated with a lot of information, a lot of tasks, doing more in less time, that I think even just being present and really asking the right questions to engage that answer of deep down what are they going through. So I think listening, being present, and I think the third thing is acknowledging. I think sometimes we want to think we know what's best, we know what's right, and it challenges us to think differently and to act differently and maybe do things that we're not accustomed to. It's not in our tradition or our culture of what we've traditionally done. So I think that's probably the first step is listening. And I think there are 2 steps in any sales or marketing organization with internal and external. I think, sometimes marketing will take approach of listening to the end consumer or the client, where the sales might know internally what's better. They know things that have worked in the past, or maybe they know a close rate that's better. And I think really it's merging those 2 things together and listening to that internal and external force to make sure that empathy, we truly at the end of the day understand what's best for both parties.
Thank you for being able to share your thoughts and ideas this morning. So in closing, are there any net takeaways that you want our viewers to hear and understand about empathy and driving demand?
It's very simple. One takeaway, one sentence is the end goal is to build a relationship and to build it upon trust. And the way we do that is through empathy. And thank you for having me.
That's great to have you. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks.